Hello, my Brazilian friends. Today is my first opportunity to do Alex Responds. Please insert music here. Just kidding. For a long time, I've wanted the opportunity to be able to speak to our channel and to my Brazilian friends that maybe I have not met yet and share some of my American viewpoint for you. The response for questions in the last couple of weeks have been overwhelming for the response. So I am very excited to answer the first 4 questions today. So before we get started, let's start the vignette. Okay, question 1. There'll probably need to be subtext for who asked the question, as my pronunciation of Portuguese names is still very poor. Forgiveness, please. Question 1. Dear Alex, my family and I are glued to the TV every Thursday and Sunday waiting for Renato. But today our question is especially for you. We watch many TV shows and often see how important it is to create family memories. I think that's something very beautiful about your culture. I would love to know, what is your favorite family memories? I think this is also very important, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to answer this question first. I believe that there are life-changing moments that should be celebrated. The passage of one part of a person's life into the other. Like when you get married, you have a huge transition. When you get your driver's license and you get your freedom to go as you please is another huge transition. Graduating from a school, another huge transition. And I don't think Americans do a very great job of celebrating those different transitions, but I try. When I was a child, there was certainly some memorable times that are in my memory. In my family, Thanksgiving is a huge tradition. It is very uncommon for a Thanksgiving for my family to go with very few people around the table. Usually it is a huge extended family. So Thanksgiving in my family is very important. Another memory that I had as a child, 2 memories. One, I worked at a summer camp during most of my youth. And we would have Parents' Day, and having my parents come down and see where I was all summer to enjoy the camp was a huge memory for me, to show them around all the things that I could do, which was probably one of the first opportunities for me to brag to my family of things that I have been able to accomplish. The greatest memory I have was when I graduated from college. Sadly, my parents were divorced when I was in my mid-teens, and although they were very friendly towards each other, very difficult for them to be in the same room talking about the same activities. But when I graduated from college, both of them came up. They walked together, they sat together. For me, they put aside their differences to help celebrate my day. That was huge for me. And the picture of all 3 of us standing together is one of the best memories that I have as a youth. Thanks for the question. Question number 2. Alex, in Brazil, it's very common for young adults to stay in their parents' house until their 30s, often due to financial reasons. I've heard that in the United States it's different. and many young people move out once they reach adulthood. Does this usually happen? If so, how does the process work? Do parents prepare their children for this moment? Is there any financial or cultural planning involved in this transition? So first I have to give a little background. For me is I have been grown up blessed by the family I was born into. Very middle class, although certainly everyone has struggles while they are young. I was very fortunate that I never worried about a roof over my head, that I was going to be fed, that I was going to have clothes, that I was going to have transportation, that I was loved by my family and everyone around me. So my transition into adulthood might be a little different from all other Americans. So please view this from my experience. For me, after I graduated from college, I graduated from high school, I went straight to college, and that college was about 60 miles away. So while I could easily come home on the weekends, I chose to move to a town called Stillwater in Oklahoma, and did my 5 years worth of education there. So I was already out of the house and learning how to live on my own. And as many of us might agree, once you get a taste of freedom where you don't have other people monitoring your coming and going, that is hard to give up and move back in. And so for me, I certainly resisted as much as possible moving back in with my parents. But did I? Yes, twice I did that. When I graduated from college, while I was looking for my first job, I moved back in for about 6 months. And then about 4 years later, as I started my first entrepreneurial, starting my own business, I moved back in with my mother for about 2 years while I started my business. And then once I got established with my news business, I moved out as quickly as possible again. Now, do I have friends that went to college in their hometown and lived at home to save money? Certainly. It's very expensive in the United States to live by yourself. Most people, in my experience, when they move out of the parents' house in the United States for the first time, usually find 1 or 2 roommates, and it is a apartment with 3 bedrooms, and they split the bills. It usually isn't until late 20s that I find that people are financially sound enough to be able to live on their own. So that's usually what I found in the United States for moving out of people's houses. So my family has a kind of a funny joke that we kind of say. It is about a dinner plate. And at dinner, when you sit around and your parents are providing you food, at some point when they want you out and they don't want to provide you any more resources, they'll take your dinner plate out to the curb and throw it on the ground. Now, does that really happen? Probably not. But it's certainly a sign that it is time to move out. Many females that I have talked to, their parents will help subsidize their living arrangements for the first couple of years until they are more well established. A lot of times they will pay their insurance for their car. Maybe they will keep them on their health care insurance until they're 26 years old, which is allowed in the United States. They'll pay for their cell phones. So they'll pay for a lot of their incidentals, and they might even pay some of their rent as well. I think a lot of American parents pride themselves on raising capable adults that can survive on their own. And this is really one of their first tests to see if they've been able to accomplish that. So I think it is a huge desire for a lot of American parents to have their children go out and be successful on their own.
Is it common to see 30-year-old people living with their parents?
No, it is not. I would say culturally, if you are past 24 and you're still living with your parents, people are thinking in their head, why are they still at home at 24? Can they not find friends to be able to rent an apartment together? Are they able to gain work where they're able to afford to live on their own? So there's a lot of questions, I think, probably at the age of 24, which is when most people graduated from college. If you're fortunate enough to be able to go to college, I think that's really the trigger time for most people and their parents for them to move on to their next stage of life or get that dinner plate broken.
So people do expect their children to leave the house.
Yes.
And if they don't, they think something is wrong.
I think society thinks there's something wrong. I think parents give their children excuses to be able to stay in their house. All right, question number 3. Alex, tell us, what caught your attention the most about Renato on your first date? So I am going to tell you about not our first meeting, but our first date, because that's what the question says. Renato took me to Texas State, Brazil, which is the Brazilian steakhouse here in Orlando. Very wonderful, very delicious. I had actually been there once before, so I had prepared by not eating that entire day because I really like steak. So what really made me desire to learn more about Renato and get to know him better is he had a plan. He had developed a plan many years ago of how he would like to come to America, start to work, be successful for a long time, many years. I am also a huge planner, short-term plans, long-term plans. And so when I learned about Renato's journey and how he had to plan, and then he enacted that plan, and how successful he was in that plan, I went, wow, somebody is in a parallel journey with me who loves to plan, who is able to execute those plans because they're realistic, and then enjoy the rewards. So that was the highest quality that wanted me to know more about Renato. The second thing is I had decided during my dating time that I would give higher consideration for people who owned pets. Now, why is that? Pets take dedication and take planning and take sacrifice. All things that I highly desire in somebody that I was going to be with. So Renato not only had one, but had 3 babies. And one of those babies was a rescue, which even talked more about his ability to caretake, to understand dedication. So all those things that come with having dogs, especially 3 of them, I learned highly desirable for me, for somebody who would be compatible. I had always had pets since I was very young as well, so I know what type of dedication it takes to have pets that are happy and well-adjusted. I guess want to add that as well. Our 3 babies now are well-adjusted, happy dogs, which I think speak volumes for ownership. And about Renato. All right, question number 4. Alex, I have a dream of living in the United States with my family, and I hope to make it happen soon, God willing. I'd like to know, what advice would you give to a Brazilian family who wants to move to the United States? Have a plan, a detailed plan. I've had the opportunity to know many Brazilians who have come to the United States in hopes to establish their lives here and to continue to live in the United States. I've seen many people had to go back to Brazil at the same time. And overall, the thing that I have observed is the people who have a detailed plan, who have established resources already in the United States, who know the rules, succeed. People who I have found come to the United States and it has been so challenging for them to get their feet on the US soil, they had forgotten about, well, what do you do once you're here? Many people have the idea, and probably a true idea, that the United States is the land of opportunity. But the opportunity just isn't laying on the sidewalk. You have to know where those opportunities are. You have to know when that opportunity knocks on the door, what that knock sounds like. It isn't always somebody comes up with a plan for a plan for you. Sometimes you have to take a little bit of knowledge and then leverage that into an opportunity, which then comes into a career. So having a plan for not just the person who is going to be the breadwinner, but for everybody in the family. The wife, the kids, education, where are you going to live? How are you going to transport around? In Brazil, public transportation is great. Many things are very close together, which is very nice. In the United States, nothing is very close. And if you rely on public transportation, your opportunities dramatically decrease as well. So just having a plan is huge. I think that has a big difference.
What would you say about the importance of speaking English? That's something you should say.
Oh yes. Another big difference I have found for people who are successful in the United States and people who are not as successful or end up going back to Brazil is the ability to communicate and become involved in the American society. And that would include speaking English. I know many Brazilians who've been in the United States for 6, 8, 10 years. However, they surround themselves in the Brazilian community, which is probably very comforting, but they never expose themselves to Americans and English speakers. And casual conversation speaking, not speaking at a store when you're checking out and you have the limited vocabulary based upon getting food or asking where the restroom is, but the real conversation back and forth to American to really know the process or best practices or how to navigate in the United States. So once you get here to the United States, certainly find your Brazilian friends in your community. But I would also caution you to also go out and find other Americans who will speak to you in English so your English skills will dramatically increase. You will find your opportunities are dramatically increased if you have the ability to speak English. And the last thing I want to say is I've discovered that there are really two different philosophies from people from Brazil and people from the United States. And I've kind of struggled with this for a long time to how to talk about this in what I call in a politically correct way. I perceive Americans, we have a knowledge of America is full of rules and laws and systems. And Americans will have a goal and they know all they have to do is navigate the system to be able to get to the goal. Even if there is a block in the process, they know that there are rules and systems to allow you to overcome those opportunities to get to the goals. So America is very rule-based, very law-based, very system-based. Brazilians, on the other hand, I have more a philosophy of, I call it the Brazilian way, where the Brazilians have the goal and they know there'll be opportunities, but they know all they have to do is overcome all those opportunities in whatever way it needs to be overcome to get to the goal. Sometimes those ways are inside the system. Sometimes those are personal relationships to the people who can grant you your goal. Both are fine. Both are just different philosophies. But realize when you come to the United States, we are much more rule and law and system based, and you have to learn to navigate in that system, or you'll always find that you come into challenges. So that's my first Alex Responds. Thank you so much for all the questions. Continue to send those questions in. I will try to answer as many of them as possible. I will try to do better getting into the chats and responding more to your questions in the future. And I certainly thank for everybody tuning in today. Until next month, ciao, ciao.
Antes de encerrar o vídeo, eu queria fazer um pedido muito especial. A ONG Amigos de São Francisco está prestes a realizar um grande sonho: comprar definitivamente o sítio em Ibiúna, onde hoje acolhe centenas de cães e gatos resgatados do abandono. O valor é de R$360 mil e já foi arrecadado 80%. Agora falta apenas 20% para que esse lar seja realmente deles. Desde 2012, a ONG já transformou a vida de mais de 2.000 animais. Muitos foram adotados, mas outros, especialmente os mais velhinhos, provavelmente passarão o resto da vida no abrigo. E é justamente por eles que essa conquista é tão importante. Se o sítio não for comprado, todos correm o risco de perder o único lar que têm. Por isso, eu peço a sua ajuda. Não importa o valor, qualquer contribuição faz diferença. A sua doação pode significar dignidade, segurança e amor até o último dia de cada um desses animais. Vamos juntos unir forças e transformar esse sonho em realidade.